It's an honor to be here with you guys this morning. I wrote a new book called The Black Tax, The Cost of Being Black in America. And it's about what is the financial cost of discrimination against black people. Often when people are talking about discrimination, we're talking about the morality of it, we're talking about the injustice associated with it, and I wanted to take a different look at it. I wanted to look at what is the financial cost, right? I wanted to look at what researchers have said is that cost. And then over time, see if we can aggregate that to build a picture of actually what's happening. So the book is broken into 3 parts. It's a lot of words. You can focus on me. It's okay. The first part is a look at the cost of discrimination across multiple industries: the housing, automotive, job search, high-end careers, online commerce, business financing, to see what that picture looks like. The second part of the book, I try to answer a pressing question, which is, how is it that after 400 years, 40-plus million African Americans own just 2% of U.S. wealth? Either we are consistently inept, or there is something else happening in the environment that we need to take a closer look at. The third part of the book, we explore an economic framework that I call PhD, as a framework that individuals and families, corporations, businesses, so on and so forth, can employ if they want to address 2 particularly pressing issues. The first is we're missing 6 million jobs and 1.4 million businesses with staff, not sole proprietors, businesses with staff across the broader black community in America. Those 2 things combined with $8 trillion of net worth that is also missing are the single biggest drivers for almost all of the socioeconomic issues and challenges that we are facing. So what is the black tax? The black tax is a financial cost placed on black Americans by people and or institutions that have conscious or unconscious bias against black Americans. Conscious or unconscious bias. Either they're aware or unaware. This clearly begs the question, right? Are Americans really biased against black people? Or do we just feel that way? So what I wanted to do was take a look at what research has said. So in 2012, AP, Associated Press, along with Stanford, Michigan, University of Chicago, did a study to try to ascertain how much bias was across the greater electorate. And they found a couple of things. They found that the portion of Americans expressing explicit, conscious, they are aware of it, bias, or anti-black attitudes, was about 50% of the population, which is a significant portion of the population. They also took a look and said, how much of the population has an implicit or unconscious bias? And that's closer to 56%, about 6 in 10 in 2012. Harvard has been researching this for a number of years. Their researchers developed something called the implicit association test that they use to tease out unconscious bias in various people who take the test. And over 3 million people have taken this test. And what they have found is that 75% of Americans, so it's almost 8 out of 10, have an implicit, unconscious preference for white people over black people. They also found that this automatic preference, as they call it, predicts discriminatory behavior, even for people who earnestly believe that they don't discriminate at all. As a matter of fact, they say that this is empirical truth. So, if this is the case, then we should be able to see some evidence of this kind of showing up in a marketplace, right? As opposed to just talk about it qualitatively. So back in 2002, the researchers at University of Chicago did a study, and they wanted to take a look at discrimination in the labor market. And what they did was they created resumes, and they allowed the resumes to vary in quality, what they called quality. So this was like the prestige of the school you went to, right? The depth of your experience, the length of your experience, right? And what they did was they changed the names on the resumes. So they would put white-sounding names on certain resumes, and they used Brandon and Emily, right? And they would put same resume, black-sounding names. So Jamal, Lakeisha, right? And they would send them out to various employers, and they wanted to see what the response was. So one of the first things that they saw was, for the white-sounding names, they saw 50% more callbacks than the same resume, very same resume, that just had a black-sounding name. So Emily, 50% more callbacks than Lakeisha. No difference on the resume whatsoever. The other thing that they observed was, as you increase the quality of the resumes, so the schools and the depth of experience and the length of experience, so on and so forth, they saw with the white-sounding names, the callbacks went up 30%. This makes sense, right? Stronger candidates, yeah, I want to talk to that young lady, I want to talk to that young man, fantastic. Same resume, when the quality was increased, but had a black name, no change in callback. Zero incremental interest. Statistically insignificant. Same resume, same level of quality increase, different names. What they also found was that to overcome this effect of the name, one might need up to 8 years of additional experience if you have a black-sounding name. They found that the level of discrimination was significant, and it was uniform across industries and across occupations, even size of the company. So another study was done by a nonprofit research firm, and they also wanted to test discrimination in the marketplace. So what they did was they went and spoke to businesses. They actually did a really smart thing. They went and spoke to businesses, and they said, listen, what are the skills that you need? Let's just start with your desires, right? What are the skills that you need? Tell us the skills that you need. Tell us the skills that you will hire people if they have these needs, right? Smart thing to do. Businesses share that information. Here are the skills that we need, right? So they said, okay, we're going to put together a year-long training program to develop and enhance those skills within various candidates. If the people have these skills, are you interested? Yes, we're interested. Of course you're interested, right? So they go through this year-long program, and what they observed was, for women, for Hispanics, for foreign-born participants in the program whose skills developed over the course of that year, their employment rates all went up. For the African Americans in the program whose skills increased over the course of that year, no change, no takers, no interest. Now, the level of discrimination in the marketplace is quite significant. And it's so significant that researchers from Arizona State University found that if you're white with a felony conviction, you'll get more callbacks than a black candidate with no record at all. Right? Think about what that implies. So you could say, look, I hear you. I kind of get it. Maybe that's for regular people. I'm a high achiever. Right? What I do is I go to the top. You know what I mean? Doctor, lawyer, engineer. That's what we do. We don't do this kind of other business. Right? So, and I hear you. I get it. So another research study was done by a firm called Nexton. So they wanted to get a sense for discrimination that might be in the legal profession, right? So here's what they did. So they develop a memo, right? And in the memo, they proceed to insert errors, right? So you can see errors in grammar and spelling, errors in fact, and the analysis of the fact, okay? If you've ever presented a memo to a senior level executive, you can't have these things, right? But these are embedded in the memo. And then what they do is they send this memo off to 60 law firm partners, right? And they tell one half of the group the memo is written by a lawyer who's black, and they tell an associate who's black, and they tell the other set of partners it's written by an associate who's white. They want to see what the response would be, right? So what was the response? For the partners who were reviewing the memo and thought it was a white lawyer that wrote it, their grade of the memo was a 4.1 out of 5. It's like an 82, like a B, kind of B minus, right? Nothing to write home about. But this is a memo that has errors in facts and the analysis of the facts and grammar and spelling, right? That's a pretty high grade. Now, for the partners that thought the memo was written by a black lawyer, 3.2 out of 5. That's a failing grade. That's a 64. You do not pass go. And not only did they receive that failing grade, but their projections of this person being a good lawyer were much, much lower. Same memo. No difference. Just told you one, this is a white person who wrote it. This is a black person who wrote it. Very different take on it. Now, another interesting thing was in terms of like the grammar and the spelling errors, when they thought that it was a white lawyer that wrote it, they found 3 out of the 7 errors, right? When they thought that it was a black lawyer that wrote it, they found 6 out of 7 errors. Same number of errors. Same exact paper, just who you think wrote it. That's 100% more errors found. Same information. Nothing different. Nothing changed. Right? Now, if you're a partner and that's your assessment, then it might be difficult for that person to get the mentorship or to get put on special assignments or the things that you would need to get on a track to be a partner. Right? That could have a significant and dramatic effect because you're saying, listen, I'm not sure that this guy is the one. Right? Based on what I've seen. Now, you might still do okay as an attorney, right? You can go work someplace else, but you have the skills and the ability and the capabilities to be a partner, but you're not going to get on that track, or it's very unlikely. And the difference in earnings over a career could be $11 million off of interpretation, not the actual work. Now, if you think about what's the impact on the family of this individual, what's the impact of the community, what's the impact on the church, what's the impact on the nonprofit boards that they may sit on, so on and so forth. It reverberates, right? Now, a large law firm, only about 3% of lawyers are black. Less than 2% of the partners are black. Does this have anything to do with it?